Hello everyone. Hello everyone and welcome. Okay, hello everyone and welcome. My name's Aquayemi-Claude. This is another edition of Shine the Spotlight, Captivating Awareness, the podcast. And our guest is going to be talking about their music, art, and who's kindly joined us to share their perspective on their topic and also share their own experience and their story with us today. So I'll hand you over to our guest today, who is Sean, and who's kindly spared time to talk to us. I'll hand over to Sean. Please feel free to introduce yourself.
There isn't a connection. Sorry. I can see.
Okay. Can you hear me? Hello? Okay. Bear with us one moment, everyone.
I can't hear it.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Can you hear us? If you put a thumbs up in the comments. Can our guest also hear?
I don't think this is happening.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, hello. Can you hear us? Hello? Okay. Bear with us, everyone. We've had some technical issues. Please rejoin. That could be better now. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, that seems a bit better. I was literally hearing
Brilliant.
one word every 10 seconds. Right. Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, it's wonderful when technical hitches can happen because, of course, we can never be prepared. So first and foremost, I would like to introduce our guest, Sean, who's going to be sharing about themselves, music, art, and it should be a really interesting and fruitful discussion. So I'll hand you over to our guest, who's going to introduce themselves.
Thank you then. Cheers. Yeah, I'm Sean. I'm an artist and writer in the UK from Sussex coast. I lived in Istanbul for 10 years, and I have been shown at the South Bank exhibition, and I've done a TED talk, and I've published nine books with another one coming this year. So I'm very busy in the creative arts.
Wonderful, and thank you for sharing, and congratulations. So first and foremost, please feel free to tell us a bit about your book and what was the writing process like?
A Delicate Balance of Reason was the last one, published in the early 2024. It's the subtitles Adventures in the Culture Wars, and the process going up to it was a year of putting various thoughts together and observations from what was happening in culture, and my observations of identity politics, which have been a net negative these days for society. So I was trying to bring all that out in a quite humorous way. Not it's not jokey, but I've always got an element of wit in my writing. So it was these serious points, like the harm we're doing society by dividing everyone all the time, with the black humor underneath. So that's a delicate balance of reason.
Thank you for sharing. And what would you say is the challenges we are facing when it comes to creativity, but also modern society from your perspective?
I suppose the main problem I would see is that creativity is seen as a kind of it's either a thing to help your mental health, or it's a thing that's only useful in the service of industry. So if it's not kind of graphic design for an advert company, or it's somehow helping you through something, then it's worthless. And I don't think either of those are absolutes. They're just useful tools to the progressive agenda. The progressive agenda has its uses in some places, but art exists for its own sake, which is the liberal humanist form of expression, of the human expression.
Yeah.
And that seems to be forgotten by lots of the people who only want to see everything that we do in terms of, is it good for society? And if it isn't, then it's useless. And I don't ascribe to that. So I think that it needs to be encouraged to be itself again, and to people engage with people in a, not in a, is that going to harm me in a triggering way? Get rid of all the triggering stuff and go for art supposed to reflect all parts of humanity, whether it's sweet or nasty, and all the bad parts and the good parts. And I want to see it go back to that.
I love that perspective. And what would you say is the way of the tools that could bring us to that kind of assistance when it comes to human interaction, or even when it comes to humor? What would you say are your perspectives when it comes to that kind of question, if I may ask?
Just being honest, really. It just, if a person expresses a thing to you, answer them honestly, kindly, but it shouldn't have to be an effort to be kind. People just are generally kind in general, unless they're not like that and they're a mean person. And but everything that we say is try to cover up the fact that there are differences between us, but those differences shouldn't be a problem to the mature person. They should be talked about in a healthy and normal way. When I say to normal, I just mean straightforward, human to human. And but identity politics tends to try and get rid of all that in order to get away from any perceived hate speech or something like that. Say, well, if you're honest about things, there's no such thing as hate speech. And that goes all ways, both ways, and left, right, and centre. So unfortunately, there's a lot of the theory behind everything, and everyone points to the theorists and says, "Look at all the research." I say, "Well, I'm not interested in your research. I'm interested in how you think and feel." So keeping it real, I suppose, would be the best tool I could suggest.
No, thank you very much. I'm sure that's helpful insight for others. And where we have the world of music and AI and that kind of element of development, what would be your outlook on the element of authenticity and where AI is kind of developing very quickly in society?
Yeah, I keep hearing AI being a big thing on the horizon from Starmer and from everybody, and all the tech bros, of course, and everything else. The only use I've seen in my life for it is as cartoon memes and being quite funny for taking the mickey out of people in power. So that's where I am so far with it. I don't use such things in my work. If I tried to make a painting with AI, it would be automatically dismissed from any competition or anything like that. I'm not interested in it. It has no use because I don't make art from bits and bytes. Basically, I'm not interested in tech and arts in communication, visual arts. With recording, it's different because that's been a recording. There's a process of digital recording for 30, 40 years where there's bits and bytes already involved. So you can make probably something interesting. But if AI just takes from what is already there, So there's very little creativity except for putting things together. And that's the art of synthesis. That's okay. But unless you have some real human expression in there somewhere and sort of dominant in that, it's going to be lame, and it's just going to sound like a bunch of kind of processed pop as usual. Because AI just goes, what do people most want to listen to? And that is not art. That's product. So, you know, unless you put that in a different way, unless you say this is product, if you say that, then that can be a piece of art itself. But if you're trying to get by people and say, hey, like this, then it's bogus to me in that way.
And behind you, is that one of the pieces of your art, if I may ask?
It is. That's from a couple of years ago now. It's one of my biggest. It's like 6 foot by 4. The liminal faces, it's called, which means between the real and the spiritual world. So they're kind of beamed in faces, I suppose. I can't remember now. It's been such a long time. It feels like I did it, but it's still quite strong, and it sits on my wall.
And when you do your painting, what's the painting process in general? Do you take where do you take your inspiration? Is it from society? Is it from past experience, or what's your painting process, if I may ask?
It's a combination. I kind of have an abstract phase where I just go for whatever's in my subconscious, and I play, and I then go through it, and like as an cathartic expression of enjoying paint, which I do, and then seeing what it is. This one's a little bit like that behind me, but also I get inspired by people in culture, and not always positively inspired, can be negatively inspired or just impressed. And I will do portraits as well. Up in the corner there is a little one of Andy Malkinson, who was in prison for 17 years before being released a couple of years ago. His story inspired me, and so I captured him in my way. And this one you can't see very clearly is Sir Ian McKellen, the actor. So you know, he's a wonderful old Queen, you know, actor of the old school with the Lord of the Rings and all that. So yeah, and I have hundreds of those now, and they the one I did of Ricky Gervais was shared by him to his 14 million X followers over Christmas. So that got me quite big. It was quite helpful. So that was nice.
Thank you for sharing, and it's amazing art, I have to say. It looks really great. So yeah, thanks for sharing. And yeah, what would you say the future of art could look like in your personal view, or what is needed in the world of art at the moment?
For like the last 100 years, it's always been looking to go forward. What's next? What's next? What's new? What's new? Which is an industry invention. I don't want to sound too fusty about it, but with the modernism, it's like it was like this for hundreds of years normal, and then whoop, like that in the 20th century, and with tech as well in society, and so it's been kind of crazy for that long. We haven't realised that with modernism, with the 20th century, with the Picassos and the Bridget Rileys and the Warhols, we actually achieved a different kind of new classic, but we quickly binned it for the postmodernism of now, which is all conceptual art everywhere, art of the mind. I'm not having a go at any of those forms, though I'm indifferent to conceptual art most of the time. But we can actually spend some more time in modernism without always going to the next thing. What's next? What's next? If it's not hot and fresh, then it's irrelevant. I don't really buy that because I think it's much more about what is that specific artist doing? What's their style? Do I feel it or not? And that can go across all the disciplines, because I'm not here talking about pop stars and things, but I'll talk about specific musicians, like, you know, talk about Picasso having reached a wonderful amount of work over 50, 60 years of the 20th century. Nick Cave's done exactly the same thing over the last 40 years in music, as did Prince, you know. So it's like we can actually prize those things for themselves, as opposed to always thinking what's fresh and what's next, because that's a market force, and market isn't really much to do with the nature of creativity itself, you know.
And what's the typical cost for resources and tools when it comes to art nowadays? For my
The
art.
cost for resources.
Yeah,
Well,
so
I
to like to
mean,
be an artist
mm,
when you like up new come in.
I reckon, I imagine that if you cut some things out of your life that you do because you want to buy a canvas or some paints, almost anybody would be capable of doing that. You know, if you had a couple of less drinks uh, of an evening, or a bit less vaping, and you would go be able to. Not that anyone should have to give up too much of their life, but everybody has to make costs and balances in their week. So, I mean, if you did. How much does painting cost me per week? For I suppose a fair question would be maybe average 25 to 30 pounds. You know, if these things aren't undoable, if you kind of, but I mean, it depends on the week, and it depends on, you know, if you do a huge sort of painting in 1 week, that might be 200 quid, but at least, you know, the spread is that kind of average, I suppose. But if you really want to do something, I think it's about trying to find the time and the space. I've only got a little studio flat, and I'm the biggest sort of challenge is what to do with the old stuff, and without throwing it away. You know, I'm never going to throw anything away anymore. So it's like, what do I? How do I store it as I do more and more things? You know, that's my main challenge at the moment.
No, it's good to have that insight, and thank you for giving some insight on that question. And in regards to, because I'm aware that there's been a lot of people now, they, in their free time, they go and visit galleries, and there's been a lot of like gallery programs of like, going to educate themselves about art. What would you say from your perspective as an artist is the ability of increasing education in art or knowledge for others in art from your perspective?
I think that, I mean, the impression that I get over the last like couple of 100 years since the Royal College of Art or something started in like the 1800s is that we can tell when maybe 20%, 30% of kids have an aptitude which is outside of engineering and maths and things, not because they're not bright, but because they think in a different way. And I'm one of those kids. I was one of those kids. You know, I've got an aptitude for English, and another kid in art might have an aptitude for maths. It's just quite often they don't. There's not a lot of kids who can do absolutely everything. There are a couple of those geniuses about, good for them, but it's not very many of them. So I think art schools were designed in order to not completely bin those kids who were going to do amazing things. Mr. David Bowie got 2 O levels at D&E, I think, for English and art. You know, he did not do well because his brain was somewhere else. And I don't know about you, but I totally resonate with that. And so art schools need to recognize that it's not all about being able to be able for you and I to go and design the Tower Bridge and to function that for the rest of our lives. Not everyone's going to do that. Not everyone needs to in a world of AI or whatever. It's, you know, the future is about human expression and doing it well. It's not necessarily about social change. So I think people can get that. Everyone's so obsessed with how can I change the world? Well, you're going to try to change human nature. That's the problem. So what I would suggest to artists is to get back to reflecting people rather than trying to change people. You know, if you see someone you hate, whatever you hate reason, try to reflect that in art, in a song or in a painting, and then see how you might feel more empathic with them or something like that. That's a much more of an interesting way of processing that kind of thing, getting it away from maths.
Yeah, no, thank you. And what I would love to ask is there any projects or events that people should be aware of that you would like to share, and things that you are doing at the moment that you would like to inform the wider community? Please feel free to give context on this.
That's nice timing, actually. Thank you. I've got a book coming out later this year, which I'm not going to announce because it's still very delicate, so I need to leave it over there. But I'm doing something in the book world this year. But the Ricky Gervais portrait I talked about earlier is being shown at the Gerald Moore Gallery in their Nice to See You exhibition. The Gerald Moore is in Eltham, South London, Eltham College. So, and I think that's starting next month. So I'm very proud to be a part of their portrait exhibition in there. And there's a couple of contest, which I believe that I'm quite high up in coming up as well. But for the concretes, just last month, I released my 6th album, Dinosaur, which the viewers can go and find on YouTube and Spotify. Enjoy that. And that portrait's out next month, and I'll have a book out later in this year as well. But I'm keeping that under my hat for now.
Well, congratulations on those opportunities, and thank you for sharing. And as everyone's heard, please do feel free to check out those wonderful things that are coming up. And I would love to ask, who were your inspirations throughout your life?
Well, okay. Because I've already mentioned David Bowie and Picasso in this podcast, and Prince as well, I should try and step out of those boxes, because obviously those guys are massive. But I will also put in Kate Bush as a wonderful songwriting inspiration, just a wonderful writer. And Hans Hofmann, the painter from the Abstract Expressionists, is always very valuable to me. He's not that well known, so he's useful for people to have a look at, because he's just a brilliant painter that not many people know, Hans Hofmann. And the Welsh writer, Mr. Dylan Thomas, is a real inspiration in poetry, which I also have a passion for. So there's a couple more for your people.
Well, thank you for your time, and thank you for the shares. Do you believe, I asked all of my guests this question, but do you believe we could live in world peace?
One hopes, doesn't one? I think it comes from the most surprising places, because, without getting too political on here, because we obviously haven't gone there very much, lots of people in the world are terrified by the 2 words Donald Trump. But the reality is, in his 2 terms, in the last term, America was the most peaceful it's ever been post-war. And now he's almost solved Gaza and Ukraine in his first month of power. So it's always interesting for people to at least open their minds to possibilities of what can happen by thinking outside the box. And will the situation in the Middle East ever be resolved? It's beyond me, but it doesn't seem to be beyond him. So let's see if his deal-making possibilities can get through all those centuries of religious warfare. I somehow doubt it. Do we need to get rid of the religion before world peace? I don't know, but those things are very meta, and they're for a non-religious person like me to comment on it seems almost glib. So I hope people see the human always. That's all.
Thank you so much. And what was in regards to the music side of things, like musical instruments and the importance of individuals having a skill, what would be your advice to the wider community?
With music, if they have any sort of inclination towards anything, be it a keyboard or a piano, drums or a recorder, go and pick it up, and don't be afraid, and don't think you have to get anything right. Play with it, just enjoy it, and mess around with it. If you have Mr. Jimi Hendrix sat with a guitar for years, just mucking around before he got anywhere good, according to himself, and because he just never left his side, eventually it almost became a part of his body, and he became thus the greatest guitarist in the modern age, as far as many are concerned. So that's how to play guitar. And if you can also read music and do it by that, then fantastic. But that is certainly with the guitar, the rock and roll beast. It's not a necessity at all. Use it as a tool of expression, and try to keep tech over there as much as you possibly can. You can bring it in when necessary, because it'll always come, but keep it over there as long as you can, and get used to the actual tool, the drumsticks, your hands on the piano, and whatever start to feel. And always go somewhere unexpected. Go somewhere unexpected with any musical instrument you have. You'll have much more fun, and you haven't lost anything by doing that. People don't lose anything by going unexpected places. They can always go back to the expected place if they need.
Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for being a guest on our Shine a Spotlight Captivating Awareness. just to everyone else, thank you for listening and streaming and also joining this discussion today. Do join us for more content in the future, and also stay tuned to our socials and hashtag, and also we'll be back for another edition with another guest sometime soon. So till now, thank you very much everyone, and thank you very much for your questions, and till next time. Bye bye.